Hello, everybody. Hope you're all doing well. Give me a second. I gotta get the sound for you guys on your end. And there we go. Perfect. Forgot I changed that last night. And just remembered literally this second as I was about to switch scenes. Like, oh shit. Oh well. At least it's fixed now. So, yeah, welcome back, everybody. Ooh. We are, if it is not clearly obvious, continuing with Labyrinth of Grisaia. This game is wild still, guys. Like, it's still absolutely freaking wild. Brief recap of what we've seen from last time. We're now getting, like, JB's side of Yuji's backstory. We have a flashback within a flashback. I can't believe that's a thing, by the way. A flashback in a flashback. Showing her side when they're trying to capture well-known international terrorist and warmonger Heath Oslo. They end up getting little Yuji. And after he performed multiple assassinations under the guise of being a girl. Because that just had to be a thing. Yeah, so after Yuji got the shit kicked out of him by his only, like, friend in that camp, where he was being trained, he eventually passed and was sent out on assassination missions. And, like, seems like all of them were just him fucking dressing up as a girl, getting close to the target, killing, and then leaving almost immediately after. But after a good old raid on one of Heath Oslo's like, little compounds he had, Yuji was taken. And then we finally met his actual master. We finally met Asako. Finally met Asako, and yeah, she's exactly how I expected from how everyone talked about her in the previous game. She's very just kind of to the point, gives no fucks. Hey, Tenpa, how's it going? So, yeah, we're getting JB's side of everything in, like, the first bit of Yuji being, I guess, adopted by Asako. Asako is looking after Yuji, and then JB has to look after Asako because they're kinda... they have to. She's fucking Asako's handler. So she had to go through all this paperwork and shit just to make sure she could have this child with her. So we're just gonna keep, we're just gonna keep going at it. See where it takes us. I don't know where it's gonna take us. So, well, I'm probably gonna be snacking on Pocky as I, play, because, again, I got a case. I had to get a case of Pocky for 20 bucks. I gave one of the big packs to my sister, so I'm down one. I'm nearly through the first one, so I got 3 more left to go. I'll try to make them last. Try to. Alright, here we go.
どうした？気に入らないのか？
I think I was doing this in, like, my pseudo, like, crappy female voice, because this is from JB's perspective. I'm watching this while typing my Ooh! Graduation thesis, damn. I hope I don't distract you too much. That's both fun, exciting, and also a little nerve-wracking. Yeah, because this is kind of a flashback type thing going on here from not Yuji's perspective this time, but JB's. I think I'll just continue to do kind of the crappy girl voice I have, like female voice.
Asuko spoke to the boy in between huge bites of her own meal. There was no immediate response. Come on, game. Work for me. There we go. Just then, a single fly appeared and began buzzing around the three of us, evidently attracted by the smell of our food.
もう食事の食べかすを放置するからハエが来るのよ。たまには部屋を掃除しなさいよ。もう。
This is all just feel bad for JB having to deal with Asuko's bullshit. And then later fucking Yuji's bullshit.
うるせえな。山ん中の小屋なんだから虫ぐらいいくらだっているさ。ハエの一匹ぐらい気にすんなよ。
Having completed a lap around our heads, the fly landed on top of the table. Kazumi Yuji glanced down at the insect, his eyes as listless as ever, then lashed out with his hand, smashing it.
Oh?
Well, shit, he didn't Mr. Miyagi that shit. He just clearly Hulk smashed it.
Asuka raised her eyebrow at the boy's unexpectedly impressive reflexes. But a moment later, we had something else to be surprised about. His hand, still frozen on top of the fly, Kazumi Yuji had begun to tremble like a leaf in the wind. Turning over his palm, he looked down at the still twitching remains of the insect and began to scream hysterically.
Oh, great. I would do it, but I would do this scream right now, but I cannot. One, it would sound terrible. Two, I can't be super, super bombastic loud right now. That's all. Ah! That's all I can do right now. Oh god, I wish I had said this before we got to this part. I'll do it. I'll try to get it after this. Actually, I'll gotta do it right now. Do it right now. So ignore the whining, guys. I apologize. So, content CW, content warnings. So, command CW, content warning. Labyrinth of Grisaia deals with some very heavy topics and situations. If at any moment you feel uncomfortable watching and need to walk away or close the stream, please do so. We all understand. This stuff gets heavy. So there's one of our first content warning of the day, just to be safe, because we don't know where this is gonna go, what's gonna happen after this. It's Grisaia, things happen.
Crushing the fly had most likely triggered a flashback of some sort, perhaps to the moment when he'd killed someone. Pressing his hands to his mouth, the boy began to retch loudly.
Alright, so he vomited. Yeah, that's definitely a natural PTSD response.
ちょっと大丈夫？余計なもん思い出したみてえだな。
As his all but empty stomach twisted itself violently, Kazumi Yuji repeatedly spat gastric juices out of his mouth. The burning pain in his throat left him hacking and wheezing. Tears streaming down his cheeks, he whispered a litany of apologies.
Yeah, that's gonna fuck a kid up. Everything he's did's definitely gonna fuck him up.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to.
ただでさえ汚え部屋にヘドを撒き散らすんじゃねえよ、たく。わかってるよ。おいユジ、お前ちょっとこっち来い。どこへ連れて行く気？トイレだよ。 このままここでゲーゲー続けられたら叶わないからな。大丈夫なの？
Yes and no. Yes and no. That's the answer. Will he be all right? Yes and no.
いいから任せておけ。お前はそこ片付けておいてくれ。わかった。
Kazumi Yuji's reaction to his murder of a living thing was disproportionately extreme. It took quite a while for Asuko to calm the boy down after that incident. Eventually, she did manage to push him into bed and put him to sleep.
なんとも面倒なやつを引き取っちまったもんだな。
You wanted him. Okay, Asuko, you wanted him.
面倒なのは最初から分かっていたはずでしょ。今さら何を言ってるのよ。
By the time we'd gotten Kazumi Yuji in bed and cleaned up the mess, Asuko and I weren't exactly in the mood to finish our meals. Instead, we started in on the beer I'd brought back with me.
Damn. Chug that shit, JB. Holy hell.
ああ、飲んじまったよ。お前今日は車だろ？
Well, I guess she's staying the night now.
もういいわ。今日はここに泊まる。ベッドは一つしかねえぞ。いい。私はソファーで寝るから。ユージを真ん中に挟んで3人で寝るか？ダブルサイズだから寝れないことはない。
Oh my god.
そんなことよりどうするの？どうするとは？風見ユージのことよ。あの子、私たちが思っているよりずっと重症よ。そんなこと知ってるよ。あなたがあの子の何を知ってるっていうのよ。
Oh, she doesn't understand him. You damn well know she's gonna try to.
あいつの体見たか？ああ、そういうこと？風呂場であいつを洗いながら気づいただけでも、
Oh.
重曹が2箇所、刃物で刺されてえぐられたような箇所が1つ。
Yeah, he's seen hell. For a kid so young, he's seen hell and back.
骨折の治療をしたと思われる縫合痕が2箇所。細かい傷跡やあざを数えたらキリがない。
He's had a really, really shitty life so far.
ありゃ、単純に親に殴られてできた傷じゃないな。オスロに拾われた後にできた傷だろ。それと先端恐怖症だ。指刺されただけで顔を背ける。オスロのところでヤバい仕事をやるたびに、うちの会社でいうところのブースター的なドーピングを受けたんだろうな。
Yup.
瞳孔が開いちまって戻らないから、強い光や尖ったものに過剰反応する。
So he's a recovering junkie technically right now then.
オスロのネストであいつが薄暗い地下室に閉じ込められてたのは眩しいのを嫌がるからだ。
So now you gotta basically put a child through rehab. And also walk him through some coping mechanisms for PTSD. It's a hell of a thing you signed up for, Asuko. Holy shit. Well, I mean, we know she does a good job, because he's at least somewhat functional in society after this. You can at least pretend to be a normal person out on the street and try to live a normal-ish life. Yeah, he's rude, abrasive, misogynistic, sexist, all of that. But he's still functional. He's still, like, not what he did here, having a panic attack from killing a fly. And flinching if someone points at him. So, it must have took a long while, but she fucking did it.
体を拘束されていたのは？神経が逆立ってる時はいいさ。何も怖くないし、何でもやれる気がする。
So they have him restrained so he wouldn't try to break out on his own? Is that what you're getting at? They kept him locked up because if they dope him, he feels like he can do anything. So they just keep... Or they keeping him locked up for his safety. If he tried anything and hurt himself, they just lost a valuable asset. What angle are you going for here, Asuko?
だが、止めどなく流れ込んでくる情報に精神が耐えきれなくなって、
Oh.
恐怖が一気に襲ってくる。
Oh, okay. Never mind.
殺意を持った敵が傍らにいるかのような幻覚にとらわれて、暴れ始める。
Okay.
食事に拒否反応を示すのも、それが原因？それは、おそらくは過去の経験の影響だろうな。豪華なステーキを見ても、生き物の死骸を焼いたものにしか見えないんじゃねえか。
Now I want steak.
でも、このまま放っておけば、衰弱死するだけよ。
Is that why he just has, like, shit meals all the time? Like, just rice? That's it? Was that also just part of his coping mechanisms? And part of his recovery from this was just... You're gonna eat, like, rice and maybe a little bit of thing. It's gonna be kind of bland, but it's gonna keep you alive, just so he doesn't have... Just so he doesn't trigger himself from... seeing food that could have been living previously and remind him of that?
わかってるよ。様子を見ながら少しずつ物を食うってことに慣れさせるしかない。心も体もボロボロね。
Yeah, and yet you two actually do manage to put the pieces back together a bit. Honestly, it's impressive work between the both of them. Asuko clearly did most of the work because, well, she's the one he always refers to as master. But JB also helped, clearly. She was around enough. They managed to take the broken shell of Kazumi Yuji and make it into something. They made something. They turned this traumatized kid into something. He wasn't just a shell. He's still not perfect, but it was something.
いっそ殺してやった方があいつにとっては楽なんだけどな。だが、たとえあいつがそれを望んでも、私がそれを許さない。
Great.
私があいつの神だ。
Great. Asuko's got a god complex.
子供にとっては親が神よ。それ、あなたちゃんと分かって言ってるの？
Well, that child's god is dead. So he has a new god.
分かってるよ。皆まで言わせるなよ、恥ずかしい。
After that tumultuous first day, I made an effort to stop by Asuko's cabin and check in on Kazumi Yuji's condition whenever I had a spare moment.
食え！吐いてでも食え！今日は食うまで許さねえぞ！食いやがれ！
Oh my god, forcing him to eat. She's gotta do... She's gonna try anything at this point.
Please. Just stop already.
食わなきゃ死んじまうんだぞ。
That's fine by me.
てめえ、甘ったれたこと抜かしてんじゃねえ！ぶっ殺すぞ！食わなきゃ死ぬとか言っておいて、食わなきゃ殺すってどういうことよ。
Oh my god. You have to eat or you'll die. If you don't eat, I'll kill you myself.
なんだ JB、 来てたんなら声ぐらいかけろよ。いつ来やがったんだ？つい今しがたよ。それより朝子、いい加減にしなさいよ。あなたの怒鳴り声、小屋の外まで聞こえてたわよ。だからなんだ、こんな山小屋で近所迷惑もクソもあるか。いいから食えよユージ。食わなきゃもう一緒に風呂入ってやんねえぞ。
What? Help me, JB.
て てめえこらユージ、男に免疫のねえもっさり金髪女に甘えた声出して助けてもらおうとしてんじゃねえぞ。
さ、朝子、ユージを罵倒するふりをして私をけなすのをやめてもらっていいかな。それにユージ、あなたもよ。あなたのことを思えばこそ朝子はあなたに辛く当たっているの。それは分かってほしい。
In response to these words, Kazumi Yuji let out a small sigh and shook his head. You don't understand a thing, JB.
そりゃ、あなたの負った過去の傷はあなたにしか理解できないかもしれない。でも私たちだって私たちなりに必死にあなたを理解しようとしているのよ。
In that case, how about you try some of this first, as an example?
どれ？これ？何これ？
That's why he's not eating, because Asuko makes dog shit meals.
見ればわかるだろうが、私が作った特製のおじやだ。
おい、何これ？おじやって何よ？どこの国の民族料理なの？
Oh my god.
日本の家庭料理だ。消化が良くてすぐにエネルギーに変わるジャパニーズパワーフードだよ。
Oh my god.
なんか漢方薬みたいな匂いがするのはなぜ？
そりゃあれだ。体に良さそうなもんを適当にぶち込んだからだ。確かに匂いはあれかもしれないが、栄養はバッチリだ。
Asuko, what the fuck? Guaranteed to deliver a healthy boner or lubricated lady part.
この鍋のど真ん中にポテッと乗っているモザイクの入りそうな物体は何？
Oh god.
ああ、そりゃおめえオスの鹿の何だ。たっけんだぞそれ。
Asuko, what the fuck? Why'd you put a deer schlong inside the fucking rice? Why? Oh my god. Poor Bambi.
うわ、てめえなんで捨てんだよ。せっかくの私の手料理を。ふざけんな。
ユージ、ごめんなさい。私が間違ってた。こんなもの絶対に食べちゃダメよ。これは特訓。食べたら死んじゃうんだから。
Oh my god.
失敬だなお前。別に食えないもんは一つも入れてねえぞ。
Okay, but is it anything a child would eat? Is it anything a regular person would eat? I don't know many people that'll eat deer cock.
そういう問題じゃないでしょ。というかそれ以前の問題よ。ああ、しまった。忘れてた。あなたってばびっくりするぐらい料理が下手だったのよね。
I've never eaten dick. Me neither. Yeah. Apparently Asuko has. Appropriate response. Thank you, Nick. Also, how you doing, Nick?
それはあなたにも自覚はあるだろうし、食事は民生の加工食品で済ませるとばかり思って油断していたわ。
ひどい言われようだな。そこまで言うほどまずくはなかろうに。
Asuko, you put a literal deer cock inside rice. That's bad. You doing good? Good. Glad to hear.
だったらあなたが食べなさいな。ほら。
そんなもん顔に近づけんなよ。
自分が食べられないものを子供に食べさせようとするな。
平気だ。カレー粉さえあれば大抵のものは食える。
Oh my god.
ザークエ鹿の食いなさいよほら。
いや、私は元気だから食わなくていいんだよ。
Asuko, what the fuck?
こんなものを食べさせられたら逆に具合が悪くなるわよ。
In the end, I took over for Asuko and prepared an alternative meal. The menu wasn't anything special. I just whipped together a simple rice-based porridge. Since Yuji had been refusing solid food for quite some time, I was careful to keep it very thin. Practically rice water, in fact.
ほらユージ、熱くないからあーんってしてごらんなさい。
甘やかすな。粥ぐらい自分で食わせろ。
I would so hard if someone in chat be like, you started deer dick rice with that. What the fuck? Oh my god. Once again, the standard Grisaia experience. It just throws shit at me, and I'm not expecting. I didn't expect deer cock. I did not expect deer cock today. Thankfully, we didn't get to see it. Thank Christ. Oh, God.
うるさいわね。あなたは鹿の食べてなさいよ。高級食材なんでしょ。
あーくせ。ミラクルパウダーのカレー粉にも限界はあったか。畜生。
Little by little, we began to get Yuji eating again. Sometimes I did spoil him a bit. And sometimes, Asuko forcibly shoved food into his mouth. At first, the boy was moaning miserably with every bite. But eventually, he was managing to consume fairly normal meals again. It wasn't too long before he started eating on his own, even without Asuko prying his mouth open. That said, he was always completely expressionless at the dinner table. He pushed the food into his mouth silently, with a mechanical steadiness. It seemed like he was eating out of a sense of obligation, or because we told him to do so. I never saw the slightest sign he was actually enjoying his meal.
なあユージ、それは飯を食う時の顔じゃないな。まだ味がわからないのか。
Whenever Asuko expressed any concern, Kazumi Yuji would always respond in the same way.
Oh.
Don't pay so much attention to me. Women who get close to me always end up dead. Of course, this is sheer nonsense, but the boy sounded quite sure of himself. That only irritated Asuko, who'd usually reply with an exasperated, "Don't be such a goddamn baby."
そりゃ違うな。お前に関わったから死んだんじゃない。お前が何もしなかったから死んだんだ。
Fair, I
お前
guess.
ももう鼻水垂らしてピーピー泣いてりゃ何でも許されるガキじゃねえんだ。与えられた恩は実力で返せ。お前は花からそれができないと決めつけてるし、やり方を知らねえから不幸が起きる。
I don't understand, Asuko. Yuji was talking a good deal more now, but he remained fundamentally indifferent to everything, never showing any real interest in the world around him. He wasn't impressed by anything you gave him. Even slugging him wouldn't get you a reaction. Well then, what exactly would inspire interest from a boy of this age? A woman's body, perhaps?
Oh, for fuck's sakes, no.
By some unfathomable feat of mental gymnastics, Asuko eventually reached this very conclusion. And revealed herself to Kazumi Yuji completely in the nude, only to be met by his usual blank expression. Oh my god.
Asuko is not the right person to be raising a child. I'm sorry.
おいユージ、目の前に裸の女がいるんだ。何か言うことはないのか？
You'll catch a cold. I need to get charger in to my headset. There, we're good.
くそ、これだからガキは。私は少し傷ついたぞ。
Asuko was quite proud of her voluptuous body's sex appeal, so she apparently found this particular setback a rather frustrating one.
Oh no, the child is not interested in my naked body. Whatever. She's just trying to get a reaction out of him. Whatever. His life is already fucked up. It can't get any more fucked up than this.
In any case, where do we go from here? After thinking it over for a while, Asuko decided to consider alternative approaches. Kazumi Yuji had exhibited an extreme response to the death of a living thing. In that case, maybe having him deliberately kill something would work as a kind of shock therapy? But then again, an approach like that might end up
I'm getting tongue-tied. Give me a second here. Ah, God. Exacerbating. Okay. Exacerbate. Okay.
But then again, an approach like that might end up exacerbating the boy's trauma just as he was finally starting to recover.
ねえ朝子、あなたそうやって真剣に考えているふりしながら、実は頭の中真っ白でしょ。
おい JB、 生き物ってなんだ？
そうね。それは難しい質問ね。まずはほら、あなたの部屋の本棚の一番上の段、右から3番目の破壊背拍子の分厚い本があるでしょ。
Look it up in the
それが辞
dictionary.
書。使い方は知っている？
お前に聞いた私がバカだった。
I love this. I love that.
Kazumi Yuji was frightened by living things. Was he afraid of life itself? What does it really mean to be alive anyway? What is it that drives us to go on living? What's the purpose of our lives? Having boastfully declared herself the boy's god, promising to decide his reason for existing, Asuko couldn't exactly shrug her shoulders and say, "Sorry, I don't know." But however she agonized over these questions, no answers were emerging. Before long, she was scratching irritably at her head, letting out odd little moans of frustration.
Good lord, I gotta learn to read proper.
よし、とりあえず動物園に連れて行く。
The zoo?
は
The zoo. Alright. I'll take you to a place full of living things. Is she gonna turn it into a lesson? Oi, Yuji. See that gorilla in a cage? It's strong and powerful, but it's in its cage. trapped by weaker beings. That's you right now. You gotta get free of that cage. Is that where she's gonna go with this? Probably not. She just probably needs something to keep her mind off of everything.
Had she overloaded her mind thinking about living things until that idea somehow popped out? It had certainly come out of nowhere. When sitting in a chair and thinking doesn't get you anywhere, you might as well try getting up and actually doing something. It was a simplistic, careless line of thought, but that was par for the course where Kusakabe Asuko was concerned. The next Wednesday, after practically forcing me into giving her a day off work, she headed to the East Beach Animal Park with Kazumi Yuji in tow.
No, East Beach. Oh. It's, what's your fucking name? That's Sakaki's father's company. Yeah, he would be in charge of it by now. So I guess he goes to an animal park too?
The boy hated crowds and confined spaces like trains, so the two of them drove over in a convertible four-wheel drive, bringing the boxed lunches I'd made for the occasion. Of course, this was the first time Asuko had ever taken a child to the zoo. She didn't exactly know how to proceed once they arrived. For starters, they wandered over to the elephants, and then to the giraffes, and then to the zebras, and then to the koala bears. Their haphazard tour had taken them past quite a variety of animals by this point, but Kazumi Yuji looked as drowsy and disinterested as ever. He had hardly reacted to anything. Trying to find something more impressive, Asuko brought him over to the cages where they kept the big carnivores. But even then, the boy only offered a few bland comments along the lines of, "That's a lion, huh? It's pretty yellow."
God fucking damn it.
It seemed like he was making an effort to express his honest thoughts, knowing that Asuko had gone out of her way to bring him over here. But compared to realizing that a kid was trying not to hurt your feelings, it probably would have been less frustrating if he just stayed totally silent. "You call this the king of the beasts? Useless piece of crap!" Clutching at the bars of the cage, Asuko silently glared daggers at the perfectly innocent animals within. Perhaps detecting a certain whiff of bloodlust in the air, one of the male lions turned in our direction and let out an intimidating roar. Naturally, this only got Asuko's dander up. "What's with that attitude, you worthless little shit?"
うるせえガオーじゃねえ殺すぞ
From the lion's perspective, it might well have been a stage roar, intended to provide his paying audience with a nice little thrill. When this was answered by a furious threat on his life, the poor thing didn't have much choice but to slink off in defeat. Some customers just love to make your life difficult.
And over there we have Nicole Richard. Who the hell is Nicole Richard?
Kazumi Yuji had watched all this in a state of wide-eyed astonishment, and for one brief moment, he apparently cracked a smile. They'd come all the way out to the zoo, but in the end, Kusakabe Asuko had proven the most bizarre beast of all. With that tidy conclusion to the outing, the two of them returned home.
それでも最近は少しずついい方に向かってきてるんじゃない？相変わらず量は少ないけれど、食事も自分でするようになってきたし。
まあな。それでもまだ夜中にうなされて何度も目を覚ます。
I mean, I wake up a few times a night. Probably shouldn't, but I do. I usually wake up at least once or twice a night, no matter what. Which honestly kind of sucks. Actually just kind of suck. It's like, I just want a nice full sleep, damn it.
相手はガキだし、酒飲んで寝ちまえってわけにもいかんしな。
生き物との触れ合い作戦も微妙に効果が薄かったみたいね。
Did you have to give it a fucking name?
あ、なんだそのダッセー作戦名。ありえねえだろ。
あなたにだけは言われたくないわよ。
それに、まだ作戦は終わっちゃいねえ。本番はこれからだ。
What, are you gonna take him hunting next?
本番って何をする気なのよ。
あいつ自身の手で生き物を育てさせてみるってのはどうだ？
Oh.
育てさせるって何を？
犬。
犬？
A dog, huh?
実はもう K9 の連中から子犬をもらう約束をしてやる。今日後でもらいに行ってくる。
Okay then.
That same evening, Asuko returned to her cabin with a single young border collie in her arms.
なんだ。K9 からもらってくるって言うから、ジャーマンシェパードの子犬だと思ったのに。
Okay, that's adorable. And they're gonna get Yuji to fucking raise it? Oh god, we don't see what happens to the dog later. This dog is gonna die. I don't like that. I don't like that one bit, guys.
野戦用に試験導入されたボーダーコリー部隊の新生児だ。たくさん生まれて手に負えないって言うから一匹タダでもらってきた。ほらユージ、かわいいだろう。
A dog?
今日からこいつはお前の犬だ。相棒、ペア、バディ、好きに呼べ。お前が2年兵ならこいつは初年兵。つまりは戦友だ。しっかりと面倒を見ろよ。そう露骨に面倒そうな顔をするなよ。こいつはまだ子犬だ。お前が面倒を見なきゃ簡単に死ぬ。
Puppies are a lot of work. Puppies are a lot of work. This is coming from a guy that had to help raise 2 of them. Good lord, the amount of times they would piss and shit in the house. Ugh. I still love them to death, though.
大切に育てると約束してもらってきた犬だ。死なすなよ。
When she put it that way, Kazumi Yuji didn't have much choice but to agree, however reluctantly. Asuko promptly pushed the puppy to his chest. Holding it carefully in one arm, he reached up to scratch it on the head.
What's its name?
なんだったかな。全部の子犬に名前がついてたような気もするが。犬舎の隅っこでガタガタ震えてる一番弱っちいのを掴んでもらってきたってこと以外はよく覚えてない。
アバウトだな。
まあいいじゃねえか。もうお前の犬だ。名前はお前がつけろ。
Alright then. John. Oh my... You're not naming a dog John.
また適当な。ジョン・ドゥは身元不明の死体につける名前よ。
This man is not naming a border collie fucking John. Jonathan?
そいつはメスだぞ。女の死体ならジェーンだろう。
Oh, for fuck's sakes.
そういう問題じゃないでしょ。
Alright, let's call it fucking Sakaki. Oh, God.
Surprisingly, Asuko's spur-of-the-moment attempt at animal therapy actually proved quite effective. The presence of a pet that was absolutely dependent on him for survival spurred Kazumi Yuji into developing a certain sense of responsibility. The change was gradual, but we began to observe signs of general improvement. One day, I noticed the boy smiling as he tossed a ball around the cabin for the dog to fetch. It was a genuinely startling sight.
この子が笑ってるところ初めて見たわ。
It was a distinctly awkward, stiff expression. But when I saw it, I couldn't help myself from smiling as well. On a not unrelated note, by this point, I was also beginning to observe remarkable changes in Kusakabe Asuko's behavior. Asuko had always been known for her daredevil attitude. She was selfish, arrogant, and utterly fearless. Sometimes she could be so reckless that it seemed as if she'd actually wanted to die on the job. But lately, her methods had become increasingly careful and prudent, a change that was the subject of much discussion. It's probably safe to say that this had a lot to do with her new role as a guardian. Just as John was contributing to Kazumi Yuji's psychological healing process, Kazumi Yuji himself appeared to be having a similar effect on Asuko. Knowing that the boy was reliant on her protection, Death was inevitably
not inevitable. Ugh. Evident. Goddamn. Brain fart there.
Death was evidently losing whatever appeal it had once had for help.
Oh my god, I cannot speak. Let me try that again. From the top.
Knowing that the boy was reliant on her protection, Death was evidently losing whatever appeal it had once held for her. The childish pride she'd found in behaving recklessly seemed to be fading.
子供ってのは面白いな。教えれば何でも覚える。教えた先を自分で考えて予測もする。まだ教えてないこともいつの間にか自分で覚えていたりする。育つってすげえな。
まあ、ユージは特に頭がいいっていうか、変にずる賢いところもあるしね。
Yeah, he's a clever son of a bitch.
私はいい意味であいつのそういうところも気に入っている。
Kazumi Yuji had recovered significantly in his time with Asuko, to be sure, but the darkness in his heart hadn't faded completely. He found it impossible to trust anyone other than Asuko and me, and couldn't stand to go anywhere even slightly crowded with people. Fearing the gaze of strangers, he wasn't even capable of walking his dog through the streets of the nearest town. We'd been planning to let him heal slowly in the peaceful quiet of the forest, but it was becoming increasingly obvious that walking around a deserted mountain wasn't going to help him rejoin society. It was around this point that Asuko abruptly submitted a letter of resignation to the organization known as Ichigaya. As her case officer, I was able to stop the letter at my desk before word reached the upper ranks. With that done, I immediately rushed over to Asuko's cabin to confront her.
ちょっと朝子、会社に辞表を出すなんてどういうつもり？
Yes.
ああ、疲れた。いい加減しんどい。
会社を辞めるってどういうことか分かって言ってるの？ファミレスの学生アルバイトじゃあるまいし、だるいから辞めますじゃ通用しないのよ。
分かってるよ。
分かってないわよ。あなたは曲がりなりにもSARSの根幹をなす工作員なのよ。はいそうですかって辞めさせてもらえるわけないじゃない。よくて終身刑、悪ければ殺されるわよ。
うん、両方とも嫌だな。なんとかしてくれ JB。
Yeah, just help me out with that.
無茶を言わないでよ。
無茶を言っているのは分かっている。分かってはいるが、そこをなんとかというやつだ。なんとかならんか。
有事の影響かしらね。最近のあなた、少し落ち着いてきたように見えるし、これからっていうタイミングでどうして辞職なのよ。死ぬのが怖くなったの？
まあユージの存在が私に影響してるのは認めるよ。死ぬのが怖くなったというのも間違いじゃない。だがそれだけが理由じゃない。
Okay.
年のせいかな。右目の視力がどんどん悪くなっているんだ。正直言って超長距離精密射撃はもう無理だろうな。
Oh.
視力か。
In truth, Asuko's age likely had nothing to do with the matter at hand. In the course of an operation some years previously, she'd been struck in the right shoulder by a large caliber bullet. The injury itself was barely a scratch, but the shock from the impact had ruptured a number of capillaries, forcing a large amount of blood to surge backward. It had placed immense pressure on the optic nerve of her right eye. After 4 operations, the doctors had managed to restore her vision. But the overall impact on her body remained unclear. They hadn't ruled out the possibility she'd die a sudden death from acute circulatory failure. Asuko's condition hadn't deteriorated in any detectable way over the last few years, but the lingering effects of that incident were clearly beginning to reassert themselves.
会社を辞めてどうするの？
おとなしく隠居ってのも柄じゃないしな。非常勤で後進育成の仕事でもするか。アメリカに戻ってハンティングスクールのインストラクターでもやるかな。
風見雄二はどうするの？
連れて行くさ。どこへでも。あいつはもう私の子供も同然だ。これからはあいつのための時間を少しでも増やしてやりたいと。
そう。
After this conversation, I proceeded to submit Asuko's letter of resignation, or a heavily edited version thereof, to both Ichigaya and Akasaka. In the end, she was permitted to retire from active duty, but not from her post. Kusakabe Asuko would remain on Ichigaya's roster, if only as part of the permanent reserve.
Alright, now we're back in the present. I remember this part pretty well myself. At the time, I didn't even know what Asuko did for a living. And to be honest, I was too caught up with my own problems to spare too much thought for anybody else.
当時のあなたはまだ子供だったのだから、それでいいのよ。
You know, I thought I got past being a child a long time ago. But even now, I can't say I really feel like an adult either.
実際にあの当時、あなたは何を考えていたの？
I feel like I was worrying about all sorts of things. But at the time, I think I spent most of my energy just trying to process the situation I'd found myself in.
子供が経験するにはいろいろとありすぎたものね。
Yeah. Can't argue with you there. Asuko had taken me in. I was now living quietly in an isolated mountain hut, surrounded by nature. But for some time, I didn't really understand the ways in which my life had changed. My hospital room and its depressing odors had been replaced with a small cabin enveloped by the stink of ripe grass. The doctor, who wore gold-rimmed glasses and smelled of cigarettes, was gone, as was the nurse with the fake smile. They had been replaced by a pushy, crude lady and a nagging blonde. That was about it from my perspective. Day in and day out, the only thing I thought about was escape. I had to get out of this place. I didn't even know what I needed to get away from or where I'd run to, but that didn't change a thing. I couldn't stay here. I couldn't stay anywhere for too long. If I did, something was going to track me down and kill everyone around me. I didn't have the first idea what that something was. But if it caught up to me, it was going to use my right hand to kill people. Oh my god. You got your Chuny right hand experience. My right hand, it kills. I must control. Well, trauma response, so yeah. I really like the Pocky guys. I like Pocky. The words of Lili Shung, Heath Oslo, still rang in my ears.
君は誰に会ってもいけない。会えばその人はきっと君を傷つける。役立たずの君を、邪魔者の君を殺そうとする。何を話しかけられても返事をしてはいけない。君の家族を殺したのもその悪いやつだ。君を傷つけ苦しめるために君の周りの人間を殺してしまうとても悪いやつだ。やつは君が大切なものを手に入れるたびにそれを壊しにやってくる。君がそばにいるだけで君の周りはどんどん壊されていく。君は何も悪いことをしていないというのにだ。君がいるだけで周りの人間皆が迷惑する。誰も君なんか必要としていない。君に逃げ場なんてない。誰も守ってなんかくれない。でも安心してほしい。私だけは君の味方だ。この世でたった一人の君の理解者だ。辛いね。苦しいね。もちろん私は全部わかっているさ。君は人生という木から落ちたまだ青すぎる果実だ。誰も君に見向きもしない。それどころか腐っていく君を見て眉を寄せるだけだ。そう。君は嫌われているんだ。
Well then. Yeah, that's gonna fuck up a kid if you tell him that all the time.
だけど何も悲しむことはない。この私が君を拾おう。私が君を拾って種を取り出し、新たな大地に植えて育ててあげよう。やがて立派に成長した君は私のためにその枝にたくさんの果実をつけるだろう。それが私への恩返しだ。わかるね。けど今はまだ君を植えてあげる新たな大地が見つからない。悪い奴が邪魔をしているんだ。
Yeah, I don't like Heath Oslo.
だからまずはその悪い奴を退治するところから始めなければいけない。そしてそれは君自身が自分の手で成し遂げなければならない仕事だ。さあユージ、立ち上がるんだ。その体が腐ってしまう前に。やれるね。やがて手に入れる約束の大地のために。
No.
君に選択肢はないんだよ、ユージ。
No. No. Promised Land is your only possible destination. Oh, okay, so he has night terrors about that. Just screaming no. I've heard that dreams are the brain's way of processing our memories. I suppose that would explain why my nightmares were always so terrible. My brain didn't exactly have anything pleasant to work with. Awakening in the dark, I looked around the cabin, faintly illuminated by the starlight flickering in through the window. My pupils had probably dilated again. When I lifted my sweaty upper body from the bed, the entire cabin seemed to tilt underneath me. For a moment, it felt as if I might just slide down the floor and fall off into nothingness. I'm sure I was exhausted, physically and mentally, but it didn't feel like I could possibly fall back asleep. Only a curtain separated my bed from Asiko's. I could hear her snoring softly, almost like a child. I lowered my feet to the floor and stood up. Then I looked in on Asako. Finding her curled up like a cat in her bed, I proceeded to quietly make my way out of the cabin. Just getting some fresh air, bud? What on earth was I doing here? It was long past time to make a break for it. But where was I going to go after leaving this place? Nothing really came to mind. Maybe I'd just die by the side of the road somewhere. The idea didn't really bother me, to be honest. It wasn't as if I deserved anything better. My life didn't have any real purpose. I was just a small animal like any other, running around frantically because I didn't want to die. As I stepped outside the cabin, I glanced up and found the sky absolutely full of stars. It's so beautiful. The mountain air was clear, and we were a long way from the glaring lights of the city, so the night sky was breathtakingly brilliant. I'd forgotten just how many stars there were up there. As I stared at the twinkling panorama above, feeling as if it might swallow me whole, I felt something brush up against me. When I looked down, I found the puppy Osco had given me rubbing up against my leg. Aww. Oh, right. I almost forgot about you. Even if I were to flee, I couldn't just leave the dog behind. Back when Mom ran away from my father, I was probably a lot like this puppy in her eyes. Not that I had any way to know for sure, now that she was gone. In any case, there was nowhere for me to run. There was no one left out there who'd protect me. Even the man who'd promised to keep me safe had disappeared. All I had left in the world was this puppy. Nothing else. But even so, this woman named Kusakabe Asako just might be able to help me. Even if the devil caught up to me and my right hand tried to kill someone again, she might be able to stop me. Even if my hand tried to kill her, she might be able to survive. She didn't seem like the type to die easily. Maybe she'd even be kind enough to kill me instead. There aren't many saints out there. No one's really on your side. Trusting people is a good way to look like an idiot. I knew all that by now, but maybe I'd try trusting that woman anyway. Couldn't really hurt to give it one last shot, right? Let's go back in. Deciding to head back into the cabin and try my best to fall asleep, I bent down and picked up the dog at my feet. When I turned around, I found myself face to face with Asako. She was leaning against the doorway, arms folded, with a wry smile on her face. She was awake the whole time. She was awake the whole time, just wanting to see what he would do. It's like, well, is this the day? Is he gonna run?
どうした？眠れないのならベッドで絵本を読んでやろうか。
Oh my god, Asako. I answered this somewhat sardonic offer with a deeply sarcastic smile. Alright then. Snow White sounds good.
言うじゃねえか。
Okay, we're slowly getting to see the Yuji we all tolerate. At this point, I just kind of tolerate him. From that point on, I found myself willing to trust this Kusakabe Asako woman. At least on a superficial level. This marked the beginning of my rehabilitation period. Little by little, I began to adjust to living with Asako and my dog in that isolated cabin. But one day, completely out of nowhere, Asako walked over to me and issued the following proclamation.
いいか、ユージ。ガキのうちは足が速い男がモテる。
Honestly, I wasn't sure why being popular with women was supposed to be important. But I was aware that I'd grown pretty weak physically, so I went along with the routine Asako proposed. Waking up at 5 a.m. every morning for a run around the mountain with my dog. Fortunately, I didn't dislike running in the first place. In fact, you could probably say it had been my only form of recreation for a while there. I ran at a steady rhythm, carefully establishing my pace, and watched the scenery flow slowly by. After 5 kilometers or so, my body would beg me to stop. Still, I always pushed myself to go just a little further. By the time I passed the 8-kilometer mark, the discomfort faded away entirely. It felt like I could go as far as I wanted. Of course, I'd end up regretting it if I got too carried away here. That feeling meant I'd hit my peak. Unless I headed home now, I wouldn't make it back to the starting point. The rolling path I was using ran the circumference of the mountain for a total of 16 kilometers. It was a rough trail. Asuko herself had made it by running through the woods when she was younger. Every morning, I followed in her footsteps with John at my side.
よし、戻ってきたか。ずいぶんと早いな。ガキにしちゃ上等だ。途中で近道したんじゃねえだろうな。
No.
まあ近道しようにも道なんてねえけどな。間違ってもズルしようとなんて思うなよ。うかつにも一直線に近道をしようとすれば、すぐに方向がわからなくなる。
As we've established, people are terrible at going in a straight line through the woods. We're absolutely awful at it. We always get lost. Always. On a small mountain like this?
嘘だと思うなら試してみろ。方位磁石を使っても構わんぞ。ほら、見上げてみろ。頭上は厚い葉に覆われて、日の光も届かない。磁石を頼りにまっすぐ進んでいるつもりでも、岩や倒木を避けて進むうちに必ず迷う。そのまま2、3時間も歩いて、見慣れた道に出たと思えば、最初に分け入った道から200メートル先に顔を出した。なんてことはよくあることだ。もし本気で試すのなら、必ず携帯電話か無線を持っていけ。迷子になった上に動き回られたら、さすがの私も必ず見つけ出してやるとは言えんからな。
I don't really doubt you, and I'm not planning on testing it.
そうしろ。この山自体はそうでかくはない山だが、たまにクマやイノシシが出るからな。
Don't fuck with bears. Don't fuck with boars.
Couldn't you have mentioned that before I went jogging?
なーに、めったに出やしないから大丈夫だ。それに、そのためにジョンを連れて走ってるんだろうが。
Yes, the small puppy will fend off a bear.
You're really casual about these things, aren't you?
お前は逆にもっと雑に生きた方が少しは人生楽しくなるぞ。
I didn't really give a damn what happened to me, which honestly seemed like a pretty casual attitude in its own right. But I cared even less about this argument, so I kept the thought to myself. Over the first few days of my new morning routine, I didn't encounter any bears. But I did notice a few tree trunks where boars had marked their territory, and a mud wallow where one had evidently rolled around to trap the parasites in its fur. So there really are wild boars out here. It was a little unnerving, but I kept up my daily run with John anyway, slowly regaining my strength. And once I was more or less back to normal, Asako proceeded to throw a new curveball my way. Thought she said her name was Jane after naming it John. Yuji's a dumb fuck, apparently. He just continues to call his female dog John. Okay, we gotta give him a little bit of slack. He's really fucked up. So, John, the female dog.
よーし、なんだお前、足の速さは一丁前じゃねえか。だったら次だ。
Stage 2?
いいかユージ、かけっこが速いやつがヒーローになれるのは小学生までだ。中学生になれば喧嘩の強い不良っぽい男がモテるようになる。
Oh, so you get to wrestle now? Seriously, what was so important about getting girls? In the first place, who was I supposed to be getting out in the middle of nowhere? It didn't make much sense to me, but arguing would probably be more trouble than it was worth. Okay, so what do you want me to do? When I offered this reflexive response, Asako quickly ripped off her jacket and tossed it aside.
よし、どこからでもかかってこい。
Okay, we doing this. This woman was seriously macho. Guys who get into fistfights with women aren't gonna be popular, you know.
なんだ、ビビってんのか。そっちが来ないならこっちから行くぞ。
Why do I hear why do I hear boss music? What? For an instant, I wasn't even sure what had happened to me. I hadn't been sent flying like that since my time at Oslo's school, when one of the instructors had thrown me halfway across the training ground. A sharp burning smell prickled the inside of my nose. I had the sense something was melting inside my head. I'd almost forgotten what this felt like.
一応受け身は取れるのか。面白い。ほら立てよ。もう一度行くぞ。
Damn it!
お、掴みを切れないと悟った瞬間に痛みを抜いたか。お前、基本はできてるじゃないか。けど、耐えるだけじゃどうにもならんぞ。ほれ。細っこい腕しやがって。力がないなら相手の力を利用しろよ。ほら、押すぞ。踏ん張れ。なあ、そうやって踏ん張ってる相手の力を利用すんだって。こんな感じで。どうしたほら。私は力なんか入れてないぞ。お前が勝手に転んでるんだ。わかるか？
Yeah, I get the idea.
Of course, understanding in theory didn't mean I could compete. given her skill, the difference in physical size and strength was just too much to overcome. Still, the casual way she tossed me around was kind of pissing me off. So I began trying pretty seriously to make her regret it. But the woman wasn't just bigger than me. She also had longer limbs that made it hard to get in close and grapple. On top of that, her style of hand-to-hand combat was a strange mishmash of techniques, so it was all but impossible to get a read on her. If you can't take them out by crushing their head, try to at least do some damage to their extremities.
てめえこの野郎、今マジで私の小指を折りに来たな。
Ooh! Imagine a wall on your right. Swing your right arm up with all your body weight behind it.
くそ。ちょ待って、首に肘が。てめえこらマジか。この。やるじゃねえかユージ。お前にもうちょっと体重があったら今のはマジでヤバかった。
You satisfied yet? Let's just stop. I hate this sort of thing.
んだこら勝ち逃げか。ふざけんなボケ。俺。いいかユージ。お前は何も分かっちゃいねえな。お前。力と暴力の区別がついてねえだろ。
What difference is there?
正しく使えば力。間違って使えば暴力。そして正しいか間違いかを決めるのは己自身。持っていれば必ず使わなければいけないというわけでもない。力を使わないこともまた威力。すべては志ってやつよ。
Oh my god, she's just beating the shit out of him. I haven't saved in a little bit. Let me save. There. I gotta remember to save. Let's see. Progress. We're a third through Yuji's past. We're only a third of the way there. God damn it. Well, based on the metric of how many kilobytes of it is here, we would have been close to finishing one of the after stories by now, and fully finished the short stories. But this is fine. I wanted to do Yuji's past. I wanted to know more about him first before I got the after stories. Guess what today's name of the day is? Do not say it's John. Please do not say the name of the day is fucking John. I swear to God. It is okay. What is it then? What is the name of the day? What is the name of today?
Oh, fucking course, it's also Heath. God damn. Whew.
なあユージよ、本当の力ってのはな、チンピラが持つ刃物とは全く別のものだ。男は男が男として男たるべき時に力を使う。例えば弱者を脅威から守る時、己が生き様を貫く時、全てをかなぐり捨ててでも戦わなければならない時が男には必ず来る。そんな時何ができるかで男の進化が試されるんだ。わかるか？
I don't even want to understand. Violence is violence.
バカだな、めは。そうだな。じゃあバカなおめえにもっとわかりやすく例えてやる。例えばそう、惚れた女が心底困った事態に直面した時、何もしてやれない自分が悔しかねえのか？ 力がなければ動けなくなった女を背負って逃げてやることもできねえだろうが。
Real man would do something before it came to that.
生意気なことを言うじゃねえか。けどな、世の中そんなにうまくいくことばっかりじゃねえってのはお前が一番よくわかってるだろうが。男ってのはそんな時のためにこっそりと牙を研ぎ続ける生き物だ。覚えておけ。
God. Oh! Yo, John's getting into the fight. Even the dog wants a piece of Asako. Again and again, she smacked me and wrestled me to the ground. Yanking my arm up behind me, she pressed her knee into my back until the air was forced out of my lungs. It was a struggle just to breathe. God damn, this... Of all things, my goodness. This is quite the fucking scene. I will say, just... She's got a knee in his back, lifting his arm, and the dog's biting at her fucking calves. Where's my keyboard? There it is.
ん？どうした？ほれほれ、男ならピンチを楽しめよ。心が折れれば一気に負けるぞ。簡単に諦めるな。どんなに打ちのめされても心が折れなきゃ喧嘩は負けじゃねえ。どんなに絶望的な状況にあっても諦めなければ必ずチャンスはある。
It's good old Steve Rogers. I can do this all day.
力だけじゃねえ。頭も使え。使えるものは何でも使え。ほらどうした。もっと頑張れよ。
John!
てめえ、犬を使うんじゃねえよ。卑怯だぞ。
He's using everything he has at his disposal.
You're the one who told me to use anything I can. Get her, John!
In the end, no matter how many times I challenged her, I never did manage to beat Asako without John's help. It was honestly pretty humiliating. I got frustrated enough to try more or less anything, but no matter what, I just couldn't get the upper hand. Of course, it wasn't as if beating Asako in a fight would have meant anything, so there was no real reason to keep trying. But that felt like sour grapes thinking, and I couldn't shake a lingering sense of irritation. Deciding to outsmart Asako somehow, I began to watch her like a hawk for some sign of weakness. But before I could find one, she went ahead and made another absurd proclamation.
いいかユージよ。多少バカでも喧嘩が強いやつがモテるのは中学生までだ。高校生になったら今度は頭のいいやつがモテるようになる。
It's the fast kids. No, now it's the strong fighting kids. No, now it's the brainiacs. Not this again. After all that about training my body and developing my willpower, now she's suddenly telling me to spend more time studying? Just so you know, JB already helps me study, and I'm doing fine with my correspondence school courses.
優等生のお返事だな。学校の成績イコール頭の良さか？あんなもっさり女に勉強を教わってるからそんなダセえ価値観に染まるんだボケ。
Okay, so... Are you smart yourself, Asako?
当たり前だろ。こう見えても私は本が読めるんだぞ。
Wow. Very impressive.
お前今私のことすげえバカにしただろ。
Well, I do think most Japanese people who got through middle school can read books just fine. Come to think of it, though, you actually do spend a lot of time reading, don't you?
だろ？こう見えてインテリなんだよ、私は。
Okay. I don't know about calling yourself an intellectual, but I guess I'll roll with it just to make my life a little easier.
言っておくがな、お前が先生と崇める JB なんかより、私の方が頭いいんだぞ。
It's just shit talking JB.
Really? If we're talking about books, I'm pretty sure JB's read plenty herself.
確かに。でも、あいつは読むだけだ。私は読んだ後、本で得た知識を実践で確かめる。
In other words, when you finish a fighting manga, you try to imitate the hero's special move?
違うつの。あ、いや、そう違わなくもないか。例えばそう、家庭菜園の本を読めば、私は読後に実際に家庭菜園を作る。
あ、
本で得た知識が実際に役立つかテストをするわけだ。
Okay.
Oh. I think I kinda understand what you mean. When I was little, I used to read my sister's science magazines and try out some of the experiments myself.
つまりはそういうことよ。本を書くような偉い先生がこうだと言ったら、それを丸ごと信じて疑わない JB と。
But Asuka was like, I'm gonna see if I can prove that wrong. She takes that as a challenge.
自分で試して結果を得るまで納得しないこの私。どっちが有識者かって話よ。
Yeah, I get it. Okay. My big sister was the same way. She always used to say that experience is the highest form of knowledge. I can't remember how many times she told me to try it out and see what happens.
お前の姉ちゃん天才か？
Yeah, she was. Emphasis on was.
Well, everyone said she was ever since she was little. She got pretty cranky when people said it to her face, though.
なるほどな。お前が変なところで妙に端っこいのはそれが原因か。
Slick?
まあ、軍ではおおむねずる賢いとか油断のならないやつって意味だ。
The army?
まあそんなことはどうでもいい。とにかく人生とは経験が全てだ。経験の伴わない知識なんて童貞が語る女の話に等しく虚しい記憶でしたね。
Oh my god. Knowledge you haven't put to the test is about as useful as a virgin's opinions on women. Wow.
That seems like a pretty extreme argument in its own right.
まあとにかく本を読め。そして気になったことは試せ。それが生きた知識となってお前を生かす糧になる。読みたい本があれば言え。それが漫画だろうと構わない。いくらでも買ってやる。好きなだけ読め。満足するまで読め。
A big contrast compared to his father, who was like, manga was this trash. Tea's almost empty. Might take a small break, fill it up.
本っていうのは著者の生き様そのものだ。他人の人生が詰まってる。そして気になったことを試せば他人の人生を自分の中に取り入れることになる。まさに人生丸儲けってやつだ。
Okay, well... I always used to read the books my sister had finished, so... I guess I'll just read whatever you're done with, Asako.
まあとりあえずはそれでいいか。私は JB みたいに人に物を教えるってのが苦手だ。こんな風にしかお前に何か教えてやることができない。
Okay, so His sister used to read books and then pass them off to Yuji when she was done with them. Now he's doing the same thing with Asako. She would read books and then pass them off to him so he could read them. And then come the time of Fruit of Grisaia, he starts doing the exact same thing with Sakaki. He just starts like, okay, just hand me the books you're done reading and I'll read them after, I'll read them then. So he's got that's a neat little system he's kind of got going. He's able to connect with someone that way. Okay. Alright. I don't know why I didn't put that together when we first... I mean, he probably did mention it that he used to do that with his sister too. He would just read whatever she had left, like she was done with. But okay, so that's 3 people now. That's 3 people he's been getting books off of to read.
So れでも何かお前の役に立つのならそれが一番だ。お前はバカにするかもしれないが、本が読めるってことは素晴らしいことなんだぞ。もっと人生を楽しめよ。読書ってのは人生の糧だ。
Okay. As of that day, I was explicitly allowed to read any of the books on the shelves in Asako's room. Most of these were practical how-to books, but every once in a while, a novel or two that JB had brought over would be mixed in. I worked through classic mysteries, popular bestsellers, new books from famous authors, and science magazines for young adults that we subscribed to through JB. For a while there, I spent pretty much all my free time reading, occasionally setting up practical experiments based on some detail that caught my interest. After a while, I realized that Asako's analogy hadn't been that silly after all. It really was like stepping into someone else's life. And by absorbing new experiences and ideas, I was slowly expanding my knowledge of the world. Honestly, that kid's experiment. Get them little tiny, science kits like that. How-to science, do little mini experiments. Let them just kind of fuck around, figure things out. It's a great way for them to learn. Obviously, you want to make sure it's still safe. But still, let them just kind of fuck around, experiment. By this point, I'd settled into something of a routine. When I woke up, I'd go out for my daily run around the mountain. After that, I'd use the rest of the morning reading books JB assigned as part of my classroom curriculum, then spend the afternoon with Asako, learning practical skills such as hand-to-hand combat techniques. It's like I'm in the army or something. When I made this particular complaint, Asako grinned and muttered, "True enough," under her breath.
問題ない。お前一人で100人の兵士と戦えるように育ててやるさ。
Well, Ruby came to say hello. She came to say hello. Yeah. Oh, yes, sir, girl. On that note, I'm actually going to take a quick break to fill myself up a new tea, go to the bathroom, and make sure this one is, alright. So, I shall a B. And I am back. Okay. Let's just continue on. And made me a truly absurd promise. Alright, back to Ichigai, back to the present. Of course, at that point, I still didn't even have any idea what line of work Asuko was in.
ちなみに聞くけど、その当時のあなたから見て、私ってどんな仕事をしている人に見えたの？
Let's see. You were always wearing nice suits, so I guess I pictured you working for a foreign IT company or something. I'm not really sure. But for some reason, I was pretty convinced you were an ambitious career woman.
じゃあ、朝子のことはどう思っていたの？
Well, I don't want to speak ill of her or anything, but she was always hanging around the cabin, and when she did leave for work, it seemed pretty random. Half the time, she'd come back drunk. For a long time, I thought she was a pachinko pro, or something equally shady.
まあ、ヤクザな仕事って意味では、あながち間違ってはいないところが少し悲しいわね。
Come to think of it, this was just about the point where I started getting curious about what Asuko did for a living. Kusakabe Asuko. That was the name of my current foster parent. I didn't know her age. She'd probably have told me if I asked, but I honestly wasn't that interested. At a glance, it didn't seem like she'd even hit 30 yet. But something about her arrogant attitude and crude, aggressive, masculine language made her seem oddly jaded for someone her age. This might sound a little rude, but it felt like she was older than her years in a lot of ways. I guess I could have classified her as the sort of person who's beautiful until they open their mouth. In any case, I didn't know much about Asuko, even though we'd been living together in that cabin for quite some time. There could be something appealing about a woman of many secrets, but in Asuko's case, one mystery was kind of stood out. Specifically, her occupation. She seemed to pass most of her time hanging around the cabin all day long. In the daylight hours, she'd drink booze and watch TV in her underwear. When she got sleepy, she'd nod off on the spot. It was like watching a polar bear at a zoo. Or a really lazy college student. And every once in a while, she'd get a phone call and tell me she was going to work, and then head down off the mountain by herself. At the earliest, she might come back a few hours later. At the latest, she'd sometimes be gone for 2 or 3 days at a time. Whenever she did get back from one of these jobs, she'd bring a huge amount of groceries and everyday goods with her, and promptly resume her polar bear lifestyle. I was a kid and didn't know much about the world, but even to me, it was pretty obvious Asuko wasn't working a normal job. At the very least, she wasn't a full-time employee working at some respectable company. Asuko had never explained what exactly she was doing on those days she left the mountain. But every once in a while, she came home injured, so I had some vague idea it might be something kind of dangerous. Putting it all together, her general line of work seemed relatively obvious. It was probably a really tough way to make a living. True, she did spend most of her time in a ratty old tank top and cargo pants, lounging on the sofa and guzzling beers. Or chomping away at chocolate bars while reading books. But I couldn't exactly bring myself to criticize her, given the circumstances.
なんだ？さっきから人のことジロジロ見やがって。
It's nothing.
なんだよ。言いたいことがあるならはっきり言えよ。
What do you do for a living, Asako?
ん JB に作文の宿題でも出されたのか？
Nothing like that. I was just thinking you've never really mentioned it.
そういやそうだな。私の仕事か。お前、なんだと思う？
Are you a pachinko pro?
お前な。
Was I wrong?
違うよ。つか、なんでそう思った？
Well, you don't go to work every day. You just tend to wander off, then come back randomly with a bunch of chocolate bars.
こりゃ、お前、あれだよ。
I'm in this photo and I don't like it. I was just getting called out. When I pointed this out, Asako ejected the chocolate bar she'd been gnawing on from her mouth with an expression of mild embarrassment. And sometimes you come back injured, right? I guess I thought you were getting into fights with gangsters or something.
違うよ。私の仕事は公務員だ。
Are you a garbage collector or something?
違う。公務員だ。
Asako, I don't think that means what you think it means. Hold on, I'll go get a dictionary.
持ってくんな。言葉の意味は分かってるし、使い方も間違っちゃいねえよ。
Hi, Ruby. But a civil servant? That's someone who works for the country or a local government, right?
そうだよ。私のクライアントは国だ。私も JB も国から出る給料をもらって仕事をしている。
Oh, I can understand that in JB's case. She's always wearing a suit and everything.
同じ職場でも、あいつはホワイトカラー、私はブルーカラーなんだよ。わかんねえか。まあわかんねえよな。
What do you actually do at this job?
敵を倒す仕事だ。
Well, that's pretty blunt. Who are these enemies, then?
国家にあだなす者は全てが敵だ。
Sorry, I was just noticing Ruby kind of sniffing around. You guys are getting a lot of Ruby today, apparently. Hi, my baby girl. You gonna lie down? You gonna lie down? Lie down, relax. Lie down, relax, baby girl. It's okay. Lie down. Just lie down, okay? Okay? Silly girl. Lie down. Asako, you're really not explaining this very well.
単純に説明した方が分かりやすいだろ。悪いやつを倒す。それだけだ。
Like a comic book hero or something?
全然違うな。そうだな。分かりやすく学校のクラスに例えて説明してやる。例えばお前がクラスの連中と徒党を組んでよそのクラスと小競り合いの喧嘩を繰り返していたとして学校の番長に目をつけられるわけだ。となれば当然のように番長とも喧嘩をする羽目になるわけだ。
Okay.
番長はよそのクラスの連中を集めてお前を敵視する。そしてお前は当然ボコられるわな。そして仲間だと思ってた奴らも早々に負けを認めてお前は孤立する。でボロ負けしたお前は番長に今後一切の暴力を禁ずると命令されるわけだが、そんな条件当然飲めるわけがねえ。でも喧嘩に負けた以上は飲まなきゃいけない。 そこでお前のクラスの委員長吉田君の古田抜きじみた手腕によって今後は喧嘩になったら全部番長にお任せしますってことになるわけだが、番長にしてみりゃいつまでも舎弟になったお前の面倒は見きれない。建前上引っ込みのつかなくなった番長は今後は何かあったら俺がお前の代わりに戦ってやるとは言うけれど、そんな約束がどこまで信じられる？わけのわからない野郎に因縁つけられて喧嘩になりそうだから番長助けてと電話してみりゃ、今日は塾があるから無理とか言われてみろ。終わりだぞ。
You're losing me, Asuko.
そこで求められるのが情報収集力と防衛力ってやつだ。
You're losing me here.
番長に武器を取り上げられたお前、つまりは我が国だが幸いなことに盾を持つことは許されている。つまりは早期解決力として自衛のための武装が許されているってわけだ。
Oh, okay. Okay, this is an analogy for Japan. This is an analogy for Japan after World War II, and America's the big guy who took their weapons away. And they're no longer allowed to have an actual proper standing army for invasion. They can only have a self-defense force, the JSDF. They're allowed to arm themselves for defensive purposes only. Alright, I see where she's going with that. Okay, I'm starting to follow again.
ところがまあ、厚物に懲りてナマスを吹くって言葉もあるだろ。一度ボロ負けした国ってのは表立って武力を持つことを嫌う連中が増える。つまり武器なんか持ってるから殴られるんだという表立った武装は NG。 そもそもそんな金はない。番長に頼りすぎれば自分で蒔いた種は自分で枯れとくる。さあどうする？
I'd have to take care of things myself, but as quietly as possible.
その通り。いいかユジ、この日本って国はな、番長にとっちゃ北側の玄関なんだ。この国からいろんなものを取り上げた番長側がこんなことを言うのもなんだが国外からの侵略に対する脅威にあまりに無防備な日本において、
Yeah, true.
番長の国を代表とする各協力国の出資のもと、核施設防衛を名目として設立された非公式なタイトル組織があってだな。
Sorry, this is starting to get confusing. I don't really get it.
ああ、だからどう説明すりゃいいんだ？つまりな、この国を侵略して乗っ取ろうとする国があったとするだろ。そいつらと戦って撃退するにはこの国にはいろいろなものが足りない。
And officially cannot have said things they need to fight them off. Like an army?
そう、この国には軍隊がない。番長の国から軍隊を送り込むにしても面倒な大人のルールがあって様々な制限がある。そこで核施設保護の名目で軍隊とは別の組織を新たに設立し、防衛費とは別の金で動かそうって魂胆だ。
Officially, that's their their goal, their mission. Unofficially.
公的な組織区分としては防衛省における特別の機関ということになる。わかるか？
Is there any simpler way you could explain this?
まあもっと簡単に言ってしまうと秘密警察みたいなものか。
Asuko, you're
地方警
failing.
察権はないがな。
You're failing here.
What's a secret police force?
わからんか。そうか、困ったぞ。子供にわかりやすく説明する必要のない職業だからな。適当なアメリカの NSA とか CSS を知っているか？
No.
The people who make the space shuttles?
いや、NASA じゃなくて。知らんか。まあ知らんよな。
Oh my god, watching her struggle is amazing.
つまりだ。普通の警察官じゃ対処できないような悪いやつを探したり捕まえたりする組織だ。
So you're a police officer?
いや、警察官じゃない。工作員だ。
An agent?
どうにも工作員って言葉はスパイを連想させてイメージが悪いな。つまりエージェントだ。
I'm just a child. Like, oh my god, she is failing tremendously to explain what the fuck Ichigaya is without saying what it is.
So what exactly do you do?
だから超法規的活動。
That's not very specific.
面倒なことを聞くなよ。つまり法の目をかいくぐる悪いやつを探したり捕まえたりするんだ。
How is that different from being a police officer?
全然違うんだが、まあ一番の違いは相手だ。警察が相手にするのは犯人、つまり犯罪者だが、我々が相手にするのは敵だ。
What's the difference? They're both people who do evil things, right?
悪いことをしていない敵もいる。
I don't get it.
なあ、ユージよ。そもそも悪とは何だと思う？
The absence of good?
Come on! Banana or banana! 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 Banana!
Hi Baron, waving hand.
Hey Nichols, how's it going? Thank you for resubbing for 28 goddamn months. Holy shit! 28 months. Holy hell. Thank you so much for that. Yeah, how you doing, Nichols? How's it going? My tea is still a little too hot for me to drink right now.
Doing bad things is evil. Simple as that.
では、正義とは何だ？正しいことか？
Yeah, that's right.
では、その行いが正しいことだと誰が決める？
Doing good, just nomming some tacos for lunch? Nice. Nice. I'm jealous.
My big sister did that for me. Kazuki always had the answer for me whenever I needed one.
おいおい、お前の姉ちゃんが正しいと言えばそれが正義なのか？お前の姉ちゃんが間違ってたらどうすんだよ。
Just because you're right doesn't mean you're correct. Or just because you're correct doesn't mean you're right. Oh my god.
それに、お前の姉ちゃんはもう死んだ。どうすんだお前。おいおい、そんな泣きそうな顔すんなよ、うっとうしい。いいか、ユージ。正義を決めるのは国民だ。所詮この世は多数決だ。だが、多数決や話し合いで解決が得られない場合もあるだろう。話し合いをしている最中にズルをしてくるやつも当然いる。喧嘩になった時、止めてくれるのは父親だが、戦後の日本で父親を担ってくれたサムおじさんだって、今は自分の身に降りかかる火の粉を払う仕事が忙しい。
Gee, nice.
てめえのことはてめえでやれ。60年以上も面倒を見てやったんだ。そろそろ自立しろってな。自分たちで親離れできないように仕向けておいて、随分と身勝手な父親もいたもんだろ。
Shouldn't have expected anything better.
その通り。だからこそ自分たちの問題を自分たちだけで自己解決できる力が必要とされる。 そん父親の手を煩わせないために子供がズボンの尻ポケットに隠した武器、それが私の仕事だ。
Okay.
わかるか？
That might actually get through to him this time.
I think I get the idea.
父親に例えたのは逆に良くなかったか？お前、
Oh my god.
結局よく分かってないだろ。
Yeah.
まあいいや。とにかくそれがこの国が持つ第三の目としての諜報機関、そしてこの国の3本目の腕だ。
To kind of briefly catch you up, Nichols, we're just still going through Yuji's backstory of how he was being, I guess, re-raised by Asako, his master. Slowly making him not a PTSD-ridden shell of a person. And it's kind of worked. It's been working, slowly. And now he finally asks her the question, what do you do as a job? And she's just terrible at explaining it. Like, absolutely awful at it. Yeah, this is his master, Kusakabe Asako. She's very blunt, like he is in the future. She literally beats the shit out of him to train him in how to fight. But also is like giving him the luxury of, if you want to read anything, just read whatever you want. If there's something in particular you want, let me know, I'll buy it for you, I don't care. It's how you learn. If you read anything you want to try out, try it. It's how you actually truly gain knowledge. She was just doing anything to literally break him out of his self-imposed shell of just blank stare into nothingness. She even went so far as to just get naked in front of him, just to get any kind of reaction out of him. And he was just kind of like... Reactions like, well, what do you think of a naked woman in front of you? You're gonna catch a cold. That's all his reaction was. You're gonna catch a cold. I mean, he's not wrong. He's not wrong.
誰もが認めるわけにはいかない。そんないびつな存在こそが私と JB が所属している会社 SARS というわけだ。
He would say that. And this is before he got to that point. He didn't even make any kind of snappy remark. He was just very nonchalantly and just like, you're gonna catch a cold. Didn't even care that she was naked. Because he just had no reaction to the female body at all. He had no reaction to anything. He's also very much going through some... at least he was going through some very heavy PTSD stuff. He, on reflex, crushed a fly, and then he started screaming and, like, vomiting. Because of it. I don't know why exactly, but yeah, he's been going through some shit. Since being technically adopted. Sirs?
日米合同対テロ組織中央調査部諜報2課分室セントラルインテリジェンス&リサーチセカンド通称で SARS だ。
What's the first division?
でもあまり表に出すわけにもいかない組織名だからな。通常は皮肉を込めて会社と呼んでいる。
The company. Sounds like it's kind of a pain working there.
そうだぞ。そんな面倒な職場だからこそ社員はみんなパチンコやお馬さんやお船や自転車で息抜きをするんだ。
Wait, was that whole long-winded explanation just one big excuse?
うるせえ。お前は私の女房か？玉遊びくらい好きにやらせろ。
Yeah, he when he first asked her, he's like, well, what do you think I do? His first response was, you're a pachinko pro? You just go out and gamble all the time and then fight gangsters? Even after her explanation, I still didn't really know what SIRS was. It would be some time before I learned the details. After the old armies and Nakano school was dismantled, a new Fuchu-based intelligence agency was created to fill the void, eventually growing into a kind of secret police force under the direct ministry control. Later, its headquarters were relocated to Ichigaya, a word that's been synonymous with the organization for those who deal with it. If you're just looking at the basic facts, it seems like a respectable enough government organization. But in reality, it's basically a suicide battalion, mostly made up of expendable personnel with skeletons in their closet.
随分と嫌な言い方だけれど、間違ってはいないわね。
Yeah, we just summed up our entire company.
家族なし、未来なし、凄惨な過去は山盛り。刑務所に入れて無駄飯を食べさせるぐらいなら、使い潰すつもりでただ同然でリクルートできる人材をあえて選ぶ。歪んだナイフも直せば使える。刺さって折れても惜しくはない。死んだら死んだで死体の使い道を考える。朝子本人は市ヶ谷での勤務を執行猶予と揶揄して辞めたがっていたけれど、一度首まで浸かれば二度と抜け出せないのがSARS。そこで朝子は作戦で救出した子供を引き取り、保護観察するという名目で予備役登録をする約束を取り付けたというわけよ。
I'm amazed they let her quit to take care of a kid, honestly.
保護観察対象がヒースオスロの紙幣だった子供だというのなら話は別よ。
Yeah, true.
それに、あなたももう知っているとは思うけど、あなたを引き取った当時の朝子は、もう肉体的に限界が近かったのよ。
I'm gonna do a quick save so I don't forget to
しないん
save.
だからね。
Okay, we're making progress. We started on Cocoon of Carapace 5, and now we're on to 7, so we're making some pretty steady progress.
シナリオ進行度の確認なんてしないんだからね。
Still a little a third of the way there.
少なくとも有力な戦闘隊員として機能するには太陽限界に近かった。
I somehow accidentally turned
だ
on
から朝
auto.
子は自分の後継
Oh my
者
god.
たる当時のあなたに他の選択肢を用意できなかった時点で
What the
強制したの
fuck
は
happened
同じ
there?
ことよ。
I thought I turned auto off. I thought I turned auto on by accident, but apparently I just turned it on, and auto makes it go really fast if you keep clicking it. Jesus Christ. Quite close to her physical limit when she took you in. At the very least, it was clear that she wouldn't be able to function as an effective combat unit much longer. And so she decided to focus her efforts on training you to be her successor. We've been over this before, but you got that wrong. I chose to succeed Asako of my own free will.
当時のあなたに他の選択肢を用意できなかった時点で強制したのも同じことよ。
I did have a choice. Somehow or other, you managed to prepare me a perfectly clean identity with all the paperwork. I'm the one that rejected that future you offered me. And I still don't regret it. Not even now.
へえ。
Well, I know I've caused you plenty of trouble, and I do feel bad about it.
へえ。
Don't look at me like that. I spent my first paycheck to buy you a watch, didn't I?
ああ、そういうこと言っちゃうのね。つまり何？あなたから見た私って高いものを買い与えておけば自分は大事にされてると勘違いする安い女なのね。
You were happy, weren't you?
そりゃあまあね。
I'd been told I was a piece of trash for most of my life, but I found a job I could do, and I earned money doing it. The cash itself didn't mean much to me, so I decided to use it to buy you a present. Something that would last. I didn't really think about my reasons at the time, but I think I wanted someone to have something to remember me by, since I wasn't gonna leave much else behind if I died.
それがどうして私なのよ。
Asako wasn't the sort to appreciate presents, for one thing. And for another, I was pretty certain you'd outlive me.
そんなのわからないじゃない。デスク組の私だって絶対に安全ってわけじゃないわ。
No, you're safe. I wouldn't let anything happen to you. Damn, Yuji. Damn, that's like one of the nicest things you've ever said to JB. As long as I'm alive, you're safe, JB.
そっか。
What's so funny?
いや、ごめん。もうずっと昔に、まだ私と朝子が養護施設にいた頃、全く同じことを朝子に言われたのを思い出したわ。施設の大人ですら信用できなかったあの当時、私は朝子だけを信じていた。そっか、朝子にしろあなたにしろ、なんで私こんな面倒なやつを真面目に面倒見てるんだろうって思ってたけど、そういうことか。
You've done a lot for me. That's why, as long as I can protect you, I don't regret becoming the person I am today. Damn, Yuji, you just fucking really piling it on today.
やばい。私今この子にプロポーズされたら絶対に断れない。
JB, what the fuck? What the fuck, JB? You alright there, JB?
まあないけどね、そんなこと。
Yeah, no, he's not gonna just pull out a ring and say, JB, marry me. Of course he's confused.
で、どこまで話したっけ？
We were up to the point where Asuko told me about her job. It wasn't as if Asuko was particularly secretive in the first place, but after that conversation about her job, she stopped hiding things from me entirely. One morning, she actually began to do maintenance stuff on her rifle right in front of me, while puffing away at a cigarette, no less. You smoke while you're doing maintenance on your gun?
こりゃお前あれよ。武士が刀のメンテをするときに加える返しみたいなもんだ。ベラベラ喋って大事な武器に唾を飛ばして錆びさせねえようにするために加えてんだ。
Huh. Okay. Interesting. You seem to be talking anyway.
酒を飲みながらやってない分まだマシだろ?
Well, I guess that's true. Anyway, I'm a little surprised you use such a beat-up old rifle.
私はアメリカで仕事をしていた当時からずっとこれだ。設計は古いが信頼性は高い。いいかユージ、覚えておけ。戦場での新兵器なんざゴミだ。実績があって使い慣れた武器が一番いい。
This doesn't look like idle magical girl Chiru Chiru Michiru. Hey Brozard, how's it going, buddy? Yeah, no, this is not the fucking, oh, I love the name of that. I can't wait to go through that, by the way. Idle magical girl Chiru Chiru Michiru. Okay, before I continue, I just kind of remembered something while I was on break. My little mini break there. I remembered something that I posted in a Discord. It goes, yet another day of wait after the client's hurry up last... Oh, God, I gotta love hurry up and wait. That's the Army's biggest quote. Hurry up and wait. I'm just gonna bring this up now because I just want to very briefly talk about it. So you guys recall that Gundam game I usually play, that multiplayer one, Gundam Battle Operation 2? And how every mobile suit in that game is from the Universal Century. So you just got the standard Gundam and Zaku's and stuff like that, all derivatives from that, from the original series. They added something. They're adding something. Yeah, we used to say, run to wait, wait to run. Hey, Gardantor, how you doing, buddy? So yeah, you know how that game's got all the just Universal Century suits, like all the mobile suits I can use in the other Gundam game I'm playing. They just announced, actually, today... Ooh, we getting space... No, we're not getting Space Oomphy. No Space Oomphy. They decided to add in the Freedom Gundam from Seed. Mostly because I think this is a kind of a promotion for the movie that's coming out. Yeah, Oofy is killing people. So yeah, the Freedom Gundam from Seed, used by Kira Jesus Yamato himself, is being added into the game. The Steam version. The Steam version...
It's a Gundam!
That is indeed a Gundam. Only the Steam version of GBO2 is having Freedom added. So the console version that I play, and a majority of people play, aren't getting Freedom. You could just say, oh, just play the Steam version. One, I have absolutely nothing on that, so I have to unlock everything again. Two, the Steam version of GBO2 is a piling piece of shit. It is janky, it is buggy, it is not optimized, it is a piece of crap. And they're adding the first non-UC suit to it. Kira Jesus Light Yagami Gundam. I saw Seed's advertisement at the movie theater. Yeah, Gundam Seed Freedom is actually coming out, I think, this week. Finally. Or pretty soon. Very shortly it's coming out, so I think that's why Freedom got added, as kind of a bit of mini promotion. Even though the Freedom Gundam isn't a thing anymore? The Freedom Gundam got destroyed. Replaced with the Strike Freedom, and now the Strike Freedom seems to be replaced by the Rising Freedom. But might get replaced itself by the Strike Freedom again? I don't know. Because the Rising Freedom seems like a complete downgrade from the Strike Freedom. Regardless, I prefer the look of the Freedom to the Strike Freedom. So yeah, this is a bunch of bullshit. This is a bunch of bullshit. They're adding this into the Steam version that sucks ass. And it's got all the shit that you expect from it. It has its beam rifle. It has two different melees. It's regular melee and a melee with both beam sabers. It's got its head Vulcans. It's got its hip-mounted railguns. Its wing-mounted, like, plasma cannons. And then you can charge it all up and fire it all at once for its, well, just its burst mode. It can fly. It has the phase shift armor, so ballistics damage with, you know, like regular bullets and stuff only do like half damage and half the stun accumulation. So this thing is an absolute terror to any early grunts that only use like machine guns and shit. But it's a bunch of bullshit that's being added just to the Steam version, not the console version. That's like that's like a little gripe. Why? Why add it to the inferior version? Apparently they want to keep the console version UC purist. Like, just keep it as the Universal Century, nothing else added in. But that's a bunch of bullshit. if anything, Seed would be one of the better things to add into the game as more suits. Because it's one of the more realistic-esque, I suppose. They don't really have much in the way of super robot stuff. Gundam 00 is very, very much veering into the super robot territory. 100%. Even I would say Witch from Mercury also kind of veers into that with the permit system. C just kind of works, because it's basically Universal Century Redux. But it's fine in its own right once it finally breaks out of the Universal Century plotline chains. This is me complaining and also saying, I just want to use the Dual Gundam, please. Give me the Dual Gundam. It's just the Grandpa Gundam. It's just the OG Gundam. That's it, just in blue. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what the hell happens with this. Because I'm very interested. If they eventually do bring the freedom to the console game again, that'd be kind of cool. Because we're slowly starting to run out of suits for, in the UC. We've already... We're already, like, getting past Unicorn here. Or we're in Unicorn and almost used them all up. There's not many suits left we can really kind of pull from that aren't originals. Like, we're nearing F91 territory, and that's late UC, where things got smaller and more powerful. And once we get into that territory, we're starting to get into Victory, where battleships and mobile suits just have a gigantic wheel they ride in. And that's a little weird. Yeah, but that's enough of that. Back to Grisaia.
この M40A1 ってやつはマリンコなら誰もが一度は経験する銃だ。言ってみりゃフル女房が一番ってことだ。
Okay, what the hell is the M40A1 exactly? Oh, okay. Okay, bolt action sniper rifle. Okay. In service since 1966 and still being used. Obviously, just have different variations of it nowadays. A little more updated, but at least the general model's the same. I mean, not the oldest gun in service, or used in service. There is one gun I know of that is very, very old and still being used by regular militaries to this day. And that's the Mosin Nagant. Russian bolt-action magazine rifle. Old-ass bolt-action Russian rifle. Still being used. Still in service. Who is using it? Good question. I'm not used by who. I'm on a weird little tangent here, but whatever. The Mosin Nagant, by the way, Mosin Nagant was first put into service in 1891, by the way. 1891. And it's still being used. Still being used in Angola, Bulgaria, Cambodia, Cuba, Donetsk People's Republic, Egypt, the country Georgia, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, Indonesia, Iraq, Kazakhstan, Laos, Luhansk People's Republic, Mongolia, Namibia, Russia. What the hell is the Shining Path? Oh, Communist Party of Peru. Somalia, Syrian National Coalition, Turkmenistan, Ukraine, Uzbekistan, Venezuela. Goddamn. And then a million, well, not a million, but a bunch of former users. Including on here the US and the United Kingdom. Of all things, of all places. Interesting. Very interesting. Anyway, back to the actual game again. Not in the slightest.
お前、銃は撃ったことあるのか？
Yeah, they taught me the basics at Oslo school.
じゃあ、撃ってみるか。
Asuka was probably only half serious. I think it was just another of her whims. I didn't give it too much thought myself either. I suppose it seemed like another form of recreation. A way to kill some time, nothing more. Oslo didn't like guns very much, so they'd never been a major focus of my education. But I did remember that, based on my limited experience, I wasn't half bad when it came to sharpshooting.
よーし。標的は前方300。岩場に潜んだ三兵。見えるか？
300? For training of this sort, in such a heavily forested area, 100 meters would be the standard distance. And for newcomers with limited experience, you'd almost always start off at 25. 300 was beyond absurd. It felt like she'd set this up for me to play around, assuming I couldn't hit the target either way. That condescending attitude kinda ticked me off. 300 ahead isn't specific enough. Give me an azimuth.
生意気な。
That was an azimuth. Azimuth, the arc of a horizon measured between a fixed point such as true north and the vertical circle passing the center of the object, usually in astronomy and navigation clock. What the fuck? What is azimuth in simple terms? A horizontal angle measured clockwise from the north baseline or meridian. Or that, whatever. Just went right over my head. Raising an eyebrow, Asuko looked down at the watch on her left wrist and checked the bearing of my target.
ベクター045高度158気圧738気温32射距離のレーザーもいるか？
You have one?
ゴルフ用でよければな。
I'll pass. With due north as my 0 point, I turned the barrel 45 degrees clockwise. Since the target was approximately 300 meters away, I'd only be moving the gun a few centimeters from this point. Searching for the rocky area where I'd find my target with my left eye, I soon located it, and immediately pushed my right eye to the scope. A few careful twists of the zoom ring brought my target into focus. A beer can Asuko had emptied not long ago, perched demurely on top of a huge boulder. To the naked eye, it was a nearly imperceptible speck, but through the scope, I could read the brand name printed on its side. I've got it.
そうか。じゃあ自分のタイミングで撃ってみろ。
Okay. One shot for starters. The instant I brought my finger to the trigger, I pulled my eye away from the scope. As I applied pressure with my entire right hand, the trigger scraped against the sear, releasing the hammer at the let-off point. The bullet that burst out of the rifle's barrel flew well wide of the mark. I saw a small cloud of dust rise where it landed, short of the target and slightly to the right.
ブブ外れ。
Nah, he's getting a feel for the rifle just to see, is the optics off, is he off, how much he has to adjust. That's what he's doing there. That's 100% what he's doing. He's trying to figure out how much more he's got to adjust his aim. Peering through a spotting scope, Asako cackled at my failure. I found myself pouting slightly. Okay, never mind. He was trying to hit it. This thing isn't properly aligned.
銃に文句をつける前にてめえでどうにかしようって根性を見せろよ。
I'll get it next time.
お、やってみろ。当たったら何か景品をやるぞ。
Squeezing my eyes tightly shut to stretch the muscles that supported my eyeballs, I breathed deeply in and out, in and out. Focusing on the steady beating of my heart, careful not to disrupt its rhythm, I pressed my eye to the scope once more. The instant my eyes settled against that rubber cup, I could feel my soul leave my body and soar to the target 300 meters ahead of me. A quiet wind was blowing. As I lay there, feeling it against my skin, the air seemed to take on tinges of color. Before long, I could see its flow, its eddies. It was as if the can was right there in front of me, inches from my nose. All I had to do was move my hand and I could brush it with my fingers. No need to hit my target. I'd just touch it. The bullet in that rifle's barrel was an extension of my fingers. And I was going to touch that empty beer can. All I had to do was calmly extend my hand. After all, it was sitting right in front of me. Easy enough. With a reflexive twitch of my fingertip, I found the trigger, then gently squeezed it once more. There was no need for prayers. As soon as I touched that trigger, I knew. This one was a hit. Hit. Elimination of target verified. Although I'd lined up the shot more on instinct than anything else, it seemed to have landed dead center. Peering through the scope, I watched the beer can fly off the boulder and out of sight.
おぉ、いいじゃないか。そのまま続けてみな。
What's my prize?
そうだな。まあ、そのうちおもちゃを買ってやる。次の標的は、右7度、距離240だ。右肩用意、左肩用意、射撃用意。
I hadn't fired a gun in quite some time. It definitely wasn't an unpleasant feeling. The sound and feedback didn't really excite me, either. If anything, I felt calmer with every shot. Every ripple of emotion in my mind slowly faded away, leaving it as tranquil as a pool of still water. Skilled snipers sometimes come to think of their rifle as a part of their own bodies. But for me, it was kind of the opposite. Rather than the gun becoming part of me, it felt like I was becoming part of the gun. I was just one piece of a cold metal machine, a simple mechanism that aimed a rifle and pulled the trigger. The simplicity of it was addictive. The difference between a hit and a miss felt surprising in its clarity. After that day, I began to carry Asako's rifle with me on my daily morning run. Oh yeah, I forgot about that, Nichols. He has a dog now. He has a border collie named John. Who's a girl, by the way. It's a girl dog, but he named it John. Because Yuji's a dumbass. Didn't try to fix it after being told, well, he's a she. But that's not gonna stop Yuji. Yeah, it was part of his therapy that they kind of devised. Get him to take care of a dog so he'd want to live, because otherwise that dog would die. It's like, yeah, you want to die, but that thing will die if you don't take care of it. So if you die, who's going to take care of it? Nobody. Are you going to really let this dog suffer? They may not have said it in those words, but that was very much the spirit. Let's go, John. gun against my shoulder, a dog at my side, I ran around the wooded mountain. I remember Asuko laughing and saying that I looked like some sort of frontiersman. Of course, this was all just a game. In the middle of my run, I stopped to give John her breakfast, and once she was finished, I hung the empty can of dog food from a tree with a string. After that, I ran a decent distance away, found what felt like an appropriate point, and immediately assumed a prone firing position there. Ready, John? I'm gonna fire. Heeding my warning, my dog brought her front legs together and lowered herself flat to the ground. Bringing the empty dog food can into my crosshairs as it swayed in the breeze, I quietly steadied my breathing. When the gunshot finally rang out, John reacted with a visible flinch. Alright. I had made it into a sort of fortune-telling game. When my shot landed on target, that meant I'd have a lucky day. One shot every morning. I kept it up for quite a while. After a few days, I started varying my targets and experimenting with different distances, but found myself getting a little bored. Then I hit on the idea of coming up with more troublesome challenges. I'd take off the scope and line up my shot using only my instinct and naked eyes, or send a can floating down a stream and try to pick it off in motion, or try to shoot a static object while running with a rifle against my shoulder. It didn't matter if it was raining or windy, I stuck to the routine. One day, one shot, one hit. My life on the mountain wasn't exactly eventful. This game had become my only real source of amusement. And before too long, Asuko made good on her promise and bought me a toy.
まったくおめえはよ、人の鉄砲で毎日楽しそうに遊びやがって。お前が勝手にいじると、お前の癖がついて仕方がねえじゃねえか。
Alright, Nick. Thanks for stopping in, bud. You have a good one. Glad you got to see the insanity that was most of Grisaia today. As usual. I'm servicing it after every shot, you know.
だからお前の癖がつくんじゃねえか。そこで、お前に新しいおもちゃを買ってやった。開けてみな。
Asuko jerked her chin to indicate a sizable PP resin case sitting imposingly on top of the table.
ケースのロックナンバーは9029だ。
I spun the dials as Asuko told me, released the push lock, and gingerly opened the lid of the case. Inside, I found what looked like a brand new sniper rifle sitting snugly in a bed of shock-absorbing foam. What's this?
M24 SWS お前のだ。好きに使え。
Alright, what's the M24 SWS? I mean, it's the same as hers, probably a newer model. M24 SWS. Military police version of the Remington Model 700. Okay, I think it's a newer model. Let's see, 1980. 88 it was first in use. Versus the M40A1. Okay, yeah, it is a newer model. It's like a 22 years newer. Alright. So we got her a newer version. Basically got him a newer version of the same rifle. So it's something he's still sort of familiar with. Sitting nestled in its case, it didn't look particularly different from Asuko's M40A1. But when I picked it up in my hands, I found it was noticeably lighter than the rifle I'd been using so far. On closer inspection, I found it also had a long bolt handle designed to provide highly reliable feeding, and a modified fluted barrel that both reduced the gun's weight and would probably help it stay cooler while firing.
構えてボルト引いてみな。
As instructed, I took an upright firing stance, brought the stock to my shoulder, and pulled the handle.
違いがわかるか？
Considering how light this thing is, it's well put together. Feels really solid.
ケブラーコンのファイバーストックだ。それだけで随分違う。
Seems like there's a lot of fancy features too. Wasn't this expensive?
お前まだまだへったくそだからな。下手くそは道具の性能に助けてもらうのが当たり前だ。工房筆を選ばずなんて言葉もあるけどな。そういうのはいい道具を極めてから初めて理解できるもんだ。
God damn, Asako.
初心者こそ道具にかける金をケチっちゃダメなんだよ。
I guess I understand what you mean, but considering I was just going to use it for my daily can shooting game, this really seemed like a bit much.
たった一つの道でいい。極めてみろ。一つの道を極めるためには様々なことを学ぶ必要がある。そして必要だからと学ぶうちにいつの間にか自分に向いた学び方を覚える。たとえそれがどんな道であろうと、その道を極めた人間というのは他の何をやるにしても自分の得意分野に置き換えて物事の要領を得る。そういうやつは何をやらせても卒がない。わかるか？
Yeah, sort of.
まあ今はなんとなくでいい。何年かすりゃお前にも理解できる時が必ず来る。
If you say so.
何も考えずにそれができるやつが天才。考えた上で努力を惜しまないやつもまた天才になれる。時間はかかるが諦めないことだ。嘘でもハったりでもいい。とにかく俺はできるんだと自分を信じて諦めなければ数年後には必ずなりたかった自分になれる。これはマジだ。
You say some pretty good stuff sometimes, Asako. Can I call you Master?
いいのか？うかつにそんなこと言って。私の教えは厳しいぞ。
As long as you don't try to actually kill me. Kusakabe Asako was definitely an important part of my life, but it's surprisingly difficult to define the exact role she played in it. It'd be easy to use the word guardian, but really, she was much more than that. I don't think she was a mother or a big sister to me, much less a father. So at the end of the day, if I had to pick one word, I'd say she was my master. Oh, yeah, this is the master he kept talking about back in Fruit of Grisaia. She's the one who took it in after his horrible, horrible childhood, where his parents died, he was adopted by a terrorist and trained to be an assassin. That cross-dressed for some reason? Yeah, they eventually took him in after a raid, and she's just been raising him. Slowly turning him into a semi-functional member of society. Semi. We know how he turns out.
おい見ろユージ。 JB に頼んで経済産業省届け出済みの納豆弾を250発ももらったぞ。こいつで狩りに行くぞ。
Oh, they're going hunting. What?
はあじゃねえよ。狩りだ狩り。鹿狩りだ。泊まりになるぞ。テントと寝袋の用意をしろ。
As long as you don't bring back another deer cock, I think we're fine. Okay. The moment an idea popped into Asako's head, she'd spring right into action, often dragging me along in her wake. But even so, I can't say I disliked spending time with the woman. Day one of our expedition into the forest. Looking back on it, I think the first thing I learned in my time with Asako was the art of brewing coffee. Normally, she was happy enough with anything bitter and caffeinated, even the canned stuff. But on camping trips, she always opted for the drip bag coffee. Pouring heated water slowly into a cup, I watched the ground beans swell inside the bag. It took some care to extract their flavor properly. Sometime before, Asuko had showed me her method, claiming that the ritual of brewing coffee was enjoyable in its own right. And after that point, I'd taken over the job entirely.
うめえな。日本の缶コーヒーは世界一うめえけど、やっぱドリップは匂いが違うな。匂いがよ。
Honestly, I'm not sure how she could have appreciated the smell or taste of the beans, considering the way she puffed at her cigarette after every mouthful. Asuko herself claimed that cigarettes added flavor to her coffee, but the way I saw it, she was just a nicotine addict, and the coffee would probably taste a lot better on its own.
いいか、ユージ。コーヒーを入れるのがうまいやつは軍で出世する。そして、タバコは吸わない方がいい。タバコを吸わないやつは、支給されたタバコを現地で食い物や情報と物々交換に使える。
God.
コーヒーとタバコは常に軍と密接な関係にある。と言っても、軍人じゃないお前に言っても仕方がないことか。
No, not yet, anyway. Apparently, a grunt who'd suffered through countless terrible battles had left behind words of wisdom to this effect. Throw away your gun if you have to, but hold on to your cigarettes. At the sound of the word gun, the coffee in my mouth grew noticeably more bitter. I glanced to my side. The toy Asuko had bought for me was sitting there, not far away. There was no mistaking it for a child's plaything. Sitting on the ground with its barrel propped up on a Harris bipod, it was the very picture of a deadly weapon. What does she expect me to do with this thing? Stupid question. A gun like that was a tool with only one real purpose. You used it to kill living things. The idea was nauseating. I couldn't even bear to catch a fish, much less gut one with a knife. But now that I was starting to break out of my shell, maybe Asuko had decided it was time to address my terror of killing head on. Of course, fish fillets and packaged steaks don't come from nowhere. They're the processed bodies of animals. Plants are alive in their own right, and just by breathing, we kill tens of thousands of microbes. There's no way for human beings to exist without harming other living things. To hear Asuko tell it, this meant that life itself was fundamentally a battle. But even so, I found myself picturing a great, insurmountable wall looming up to block my path.
いいか、ユージ。
Dear!
弾の一発とて国民の血税だ。無駄弾撃つんじゃねえぞ。撃ったら薬莢はすべて回収する。
Melt into the forest. Control your breathing. Approach without betraying your presence. Kill your prey with a single shot. It all sounded simple enough, but killing a living, warm-blooded animal felt like an impossibly tall hurdle. She wanted me to shoot the deer. To take its life. Once it was dead, we'd turn it into meat. I understood all of this was natural, but my head was still reeling, and my belly was still churning with acid. It was all I could do not to vomit. I lay there, peering into the scope mounted on my rifle. And as I stared at the deer centered in the fine duplex crosshair, my finger sat immobile on the trigger, and my breathing grew increasingly rough. Asuko had told me to clear my mind and pull the trigger calmly. Sweat dripping down my face, I tried to do so, but my finger just wouldn't move any further than this. My right arm ached with the memory of smashing a bottle against my father's head. There was a sour smell, like that of raw sewage, in the back of my nose. I can't do it. Finally, as the stinging sweat poured into my eyes, I grimaced and squeezed them shut. Perhaps sensing that something was amiss, the deer burst into a run, quickly vanishing deep into the forest. I can't do it, Asako. I just can't. I couldn't bring myself to kill. It wasn't like I was making a moral stand. I was just weak. A whining, spoiled child. I was closing my eyes to a reality I didn't want to think about. I understood that perfectly well, but I still couldn't pull the trigger.
そうか。やっぱ無理か。だよな。
As I curled up miserably into myself, Asako took a cigarette from her pocket and proceeded to light it.
お前はガキのくせにいろんなものを見すぎたな。
Fundamentally, killing people isn't a job that a normal guy can do. Even if you have a clear reason to take a life, the experience is going to leave a mark on you. When you're still new, you can usually get the job done anyway. It's easy to pull the trigger without a second thought when you're frantic with worry about actually completing your mission properly. But soon enough, you get a few jobs under your belt. The routine starts to become more naturally. Your mind can afford to wander a little. And that's when things get really dangerous. For a while, you can probably keep functioning anyway. Up until thoughts like, am I really doing the right thing? Start popping into your head. Once those little doubts start nagging at you, it's basically over. Your doubt makes you hesitate. Your hesitation slows you down. Sometimes, it even turns into fear, stopping you dead in your tracks. When things get that far, there aren't a lot of options left open to you. You can fail on the job, which means dying. Or you can lose your mind and turn into a killing machine. There aren't really any decent outcomes.
殺しで作った心の傷は殺しで解消するしかないと思ったんだが、まあ無理か。
Seemed like a pretty crude attempt at shock therapy. The simplicity of it was almost childish. Like someone trying to distract you from the pain of a shot by pinching your other arm. Still, Asuko told me it had worked for her, so maybe it was an effective treatment in its way. If you push yourself relentlessly forward, you won't have the time to hesitate or dwell on the past. If you focus on your job single-mindedly, eventually that scar on your heart will just be one among many. You'll grow numb to the pain.
私にはそういう生き方しかできなかった。けど、お前もそうだとは限らない。私みたいになっちまえば、もうどうしたって普通には戻れない。悪かったな、ユジ。
I just...
ああ、くそ。この程度のことでピーピー泣くんじゃねえよ。いいか、ユジ。男の涙ってのは人のために流すもんだ。自分のために流していいのは汗だけだ。覚えておけ。
Okay.
まあ焦ることはない。いや、むしろ殺す必要もない。普通に生きていく分には生き物を殺さなくても問題ないからな。今回の狩りはそのための簡単なテストだ。
A test?
私がお前にかけた安全ピンが簡単に抜けちまわないかのテストだよ。
Put a safety pin in him?
テストの結果は まあ良好だ。
Huh.
お前はそれでいい。だがなユージ、必要がないから殺さないと殺すことができないでは大きく違う。殺せないという弱点がいつか自分の命を落とすきっかけになる可能性もある。しかしそんな可能性が限りなくゼロに近い生活に戻すためにこうして山の中でリハビリを続けてるんだから。私がお前にさせたこのテストはあくまでも懸念に対する保険のようなものだ。
Okay.
どうしても殺せないのなら殺さずに済む方法を探せばいい。それだけのことだ。
Well, we know where his path ends up. He does go into a job that makes him kill people. Kinda. I'd failed to live up to Asuko's expectations, and now she was actually comforting me. That only made me feel more miserable. I almost wish she'd just jab me in the forehead and make fun of me. It probably would have been easier to take than this. I'm a coward.
人間なんて臆病ぐらいでちょうどいい。バカと英雄は早死にするもんだ。
Maybe that was true. But at this rate, I'd never be able to protect anyone I cared about. Face to face with my own helplessness, I found myself sinking back into depression. Alright, I'm going to save it there for now. I think that's a decent spot, kind of, just to, put that little pin in. Let me just exit late game now. Perfect. Okay. That was about 3 hours, and we definitely got a good distance in, I would say. Definitely did. God, I really gotta pee now. Like, I really gotta pee. So, let's bring up the schedule for, the rest of the week. Oh, look at that. More Grisaia. Yeah, tomorrow at 10, we'll be continuing on with Grisaia from exactly where we left off. This is very much a Grisaia week. Oh. I can make sure. Sorry, answering my girlfriend real quick. Yeah, thank you everyone again for watching, commenting, lurking, and thanks again, Nichols, for the resub. 28 months. My God, has it really been 28 months? We're getting pretty close to 3 years. My God. Jesus Christ. I've been doing this for a while. Yep. You're welcome, Nichols and Brozart. Thank you guys for tuning in. Next time you all are going to see me is going to be tomorrow at 10, again, for some more Grisaia. So, I hope everybody has themselves a great rest of their day, and I'll see you next time.